Welcome to the NA History and Archives meeting. First we'll start out with the preamble with who is an addict. I've asked Bill D. to come up and read.
Who is an addict? I'm an addict. My name's Bill. Hi, family. Most of us do not have to think twice about this question. We know. Our whole life and thinking was centered in drugs in one form or another. The getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. We live to use and use to live. Very simply, an addict is a man or woman whose life is controlled by drugs. We are people in the grip of a continuing and progressive illness whose ends are always the same: jails, institutions, and death.
I'm an addict by the name of Walt. What is the Narcotics Anonymous program? NA is a non-profit fellowship or society of men and women for whom drugs have become a major problem. We are recovering addicts who meet regularly to help each other stay clean. This is a program of complete abstinence from all drugs. There is only one requirement for membership: the desire to stop using. We suggest that you keep an open mind and give yourself a break. Our program is a set of principles written so simply that we can follow them in our daily lives. The most important thing about them is that they work. There are no strings attached to NA. We are not affiliated with any other organizations. We have no initiation fees or dues, no pledges to sign, no promises to make to anyone. We are not connected with any political, religious, or law enforcement groups, and are under no surveillance at any time. Anyone may join us, regardless of age, race, sexual identity, creed, religion, or lack of religion. We are not interested in what or how much you used, or who your connections were, what you have done in the past, how much or how little you have, but only in what you want to do about your problem and how we can help. The newcomer is the most important person at any meeting, because we can only keep what we have by giving it away. We have learned from our group experience that those who keep coming to our meetings regularly stay clean.
I'm an addict named Ian. Hi, family. Before coming to the Fellowship of NA, we could not manage our own lives. We could not live and enjoy life as other people do. We had to have something different. We thought we had found it in drugs. We placed our use ahead of the welfare of our families, our wives, husbands, and our children. We had to have drugs at all costs. We did many people great harm, but most of all, we harmed ourselves. Through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we were actually creating our own problems. We seemed to be incapable of facing life on its own terms. Most of us realized that in our addiction, we were slowly committing suicide. But addiction is such a cunning enemy of life that we lost the power to do anything about it. Many of us ended up in jail or sought help through medicine, religion, and psychiatry. None of these methods was sufficient for us. Our disease always resurfaced or continued to progress until in desperation we sought help from each other in Narcotics Anonymous. After coming to NA, we realized we were sick people. We suffered from a disease from which there is no known cure. It can, however, be arrested at some point, and recovery is then possible.
Hi everybody, my name is Maggie and I'm an addict.
Hi, Maggie. Good to see you here, Maggie.
Thanks. How it works. If you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that made our recovery possible. 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, we humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for His knowledge, for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. This sounds like a big order, and we can't do it all at once. We didn't become addicted in one day, so remember, easy does it. There is one thing more than anything else that will defeat us in our recovery. This is an attitude of indifference or intolerance towards spiritual principles. 3 of these that are indispensable are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. With these, we are well on our way. We feel that our approach to the disease of addiction is completely realistic, for the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. We feel that our way is practical, for one addict can best understand and help another addict. We believe that the sooner we face our problems within our society and everyday living, just that much faster do we become acceptable, responsible, and productive members of that society. The only way to keep from returning to active addiction is not to take the first drug. If you are like us, you know that 1 is too many and 1,000 never enough. We put great emphasis on this, for we know that when we use drugs in any form or substitute one for another, we release our addiction all over again. Thinking of alcohol as different from other drugs has caused a great many addicts to relapse. Before we came to NA, many of us viewed alcohol separately, but we cannot afford to be confused about this. Alcohol is a drug. We are people with the disease of addiction who must abstain from all drugs in order to recover.
Hi, I'm Henry. I'm an addict. 12 Traditions of Narcotics Anonymous. We have only with vigilance and justice freedom for the individuals come from the 12 steps, so freedom for the group springs from our traditions. As long as the ties that bind us together are stronger than those that would tear us apart, all will be well. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. 2. For our group purpose there is but one ultimate authority. A loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are with trusted servants, they do not govern. 3. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. 5. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. 6. An NA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the NA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7. Every NA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8. Narcotics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9. NA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards directly responsible to those they serve. 10. Narcotics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the NA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions. Ever remind us to place principle before personalities.
I want to thank everybody for reading. This is the speaker part of the meeting. Our speaker tonight is Bobby, and he has a lot of experience on the history with NA and with the convention, and I want you all to give a warm welcome to Bobby B.
Hi everybody, I'm an addict. My name is Bobby. First thing I'd like to do is, if we could all just take a moment to shoot one up for a special friend of ours who was very instrumental in Narcotics Anonymous history, especially in regard to the basic text, and he happened to pass away just this past week, but he died clean, 12 years. So if maybe we could just give his soul a little help. Thanks. I guess, like, most people that are involved in selfless service, we never provide them the recognition that they truly deserve. Sometimes I have a feeling that we honestly treat those who serve us the most with such discredit and in such an undignified way that it makes service work somewhat difficult. But I guess it's those that get involved in service do it for that. Part of that's the reason. So c'est la vie to them, right? As a matter of fact, I remember that expression became very familiar to me with the basic text. And I think what I'd like to do tonight is I've had a pretty tough week, so my memory loss is very good, but my memory recall is not. And it'd be a little easier for me if I could just relate some stories to you of some personal experiences that I happen to have been involved with, and as well as doing that, maybe give you some insight as to some of the history that I feel like we grew through, at least that I was involved in. The first thing I'd like to share about what history is to me is it's a perception. And that's my eyes see things differently, obviously, than everybody else's. The way I digest that information is always different. It's like the old, storytelling. By the time it gets to me, it's always a lot different than the way somebody originally told it. So you got to realize that this is opinions. This is something that was seen through my eyes, formulated and digested. But and it's so true because the day before yesterday, no, Thursday, which was yesterday, right? That's what kind of week I've had. There were 60 people that were in a seminar, and customarily we go around the room. A lot of it has got NA influence in it, but we go around the room and summarize what their experience was in regard to the information that was conveyed. And as a result, here's 60 people of every degree of intellect, and yet you get 60 different responses. But the general perception, the focus is usually somewhat the same. So when discussing history with many people, the stories are always different, and it's just who exaggerates it more than the other person in a lot of cases. But nevertheless, I'll try to give you my summary of some of the experience, I think, from a personal perspective, and realizing that is just my information. The first thing I wanted to share about is the basic text, and I think because that was a very important part of not only Narcotics Anonymous world history, but it was a very important part of Philadelphia's history. The first time I had gotten involved with the basic text, and although my recall right now, isn't very good, but there were the first two conferences. One was in Santa Monica and one was in Wichita, Kansas. Well, the third one was in Warren, Ohio, which I had attended, and the reason I went there was I remember the Second East Coast Convention, an individual had shared, what lengths will you go to stay clean a day at a time? Well, actually, in those days, they used to say at what lengths will you go to stay clean and sober a day at a time? But anyway, and we all of us, there was about 5 of us from Philly who fell for that line, and we went to Warren, Ohio, and it was absolutely one of the most unique experiences I've ever been involved in. It was you gotta try and go back to the scene. I guess it was in 1981, and at that convention there was, I think it was like 250 recovering addicts, which was about all of the recovering addicts probably on the East Coast at that time, and the spirit was real live, the enthusiasm was real high, and what had happened is when we got there, everybody was fairly new in their recovery, but yet they were very dope fiending. There was one individual, and it just so happens to be the individual we said a prayer for, was the chairman at that lit conference, and he probably was the only one that had any literary experience amongst us all. But yet the people were so diverse that we somehow found the role in order to play in this basic text experience. We absolutely did not know what we were doing. Like, for example, I was the designate librarian for that conference, which which was a real experience. Up to that point, I had read 2 books. Okay, one was Helter Skelter, and the other one was Midnight Express. Right, and I was the librarian. So as you can see, there was very the roles that we played. It was just like where if you were standing there, you were appointed to something, whether or not you had that was your area of expertise or not. And it was a great learning experience for all of us. But I worked in that library with a young lady from Kansas. Her name was Dorothy. No, her name was Linda. And what a wonderful person she was. But the dedication and I think the enthusiasm that we all experienced, it was just tremendous. I believe it was tremendous personally for our recoveries, and I believe that's what the basic text was all about, because I don't think any one of us knew what the fuck we were doing or what we were writing about. As a matter of fact, is there a basic text in this room? Anybody have one? Could you... It's in the case. You got to break the glass to get to it. If you break the glass, bring me that first convention T-shirt, will you? I want to put it in. I'm going to put it in my basement with all the other shit you guys are saying I have. Yeah, right. See what I mean? I was waiting for somebody to try to humiliate me into giving up that banner, but. But. Let me set the record straight, since this is being on tape, and I'm going to probably get in trouble anyway. Is there a first edition there? Because I know it's written in that. I don't know if it's written in the others.
Which one? A red or blue one?
Huh? A red first edition. What number is it? I don't read anything less than 50.
1,160.
See, I don't even look at anything less than 50. That's a joke. That's just a joke. Man, you guys are serious. Is that what recovery is all about, huh? To get serious?
Seriously, I got a first edition T-shirt for you for that, and another one.
Can I tell you something? But anyway, the reason why I asked for this is because there was a special prayer that was written in the course of the Lit Conference, and it's a prayer, believe it or not, that I try to use all the time whenever I'm doing some writing, okay? Because I think it is, just for me personally, it means a lot. And I think this exemplifies, where we try to come from. And it says, God grant us the knowledge that we may write according to your divine precepts. Instill in us a sense of your purpose. Make us servants of your will, and grant us a bond of selflessness, that this may truly be your work, not ours, in order that no addict anywhere need die from the horrors of addiction. And I think that's such a beautiful prayer, and before every meeting we used to read that. Thank you. And as a result of reading that prayer, it was almost like you had to somewhat get spiritual, or whatever kind of spirituality that you had. And I don't believe any of us were really that spiritual, but especially when the politics began. But yet, you had to grasp a sense of perception, of where we were at that time, what we were really trying to do. And it was like people, there was no literature on Narcotics Anonymous then, any real valuable literature outside of the pamphlets that we had. And this was like such a huge undertaking, and there was about 50 or 60 people there. It was a real communal setting, so we all were adjusted instantly. There was we had a guy that did all the cooking. He was from jail. He had just gotten released, so he was used to that. And we ate like we were in jail, with sloppy joes and potato chips. Those were the kind of meals we had. The setting was an old school that had closed down, and the only thing that they used the school for was they used to run driver's education classes there for DWIs. And so we were in there for 5 days, I believe it was. And great, unbelievable experience. Just what we used to do is we used to sit in those rooms and fight whether the word was thee or the. And we just hammered it out, man. And it was, You know, you knew who the principal players were, and you played politics, and you know, if you got this guy to shake his head yes, then the whole corner of the room would do likewise. And you know, everybody tried to get their say in what their belief is. And I think that's one of the things about history as we've evolved, in my idea, is that, you know, this program, you know what's so tough and with controversy and everything about this program to me is just that it's not like anything else that we experience, in the sense that this saved our lives. Narcotics Anonymous saved my life. What could be more endearing to me than something that saved my life? You know, I love it more than I do myself. I really mean that. So with that comes a sense of protection and insecurity. You know, all the screwed up things that I base love on, you know, is part of my relationship with NA. And my ideals and my thoughts and my opinions are all important to me, because talking about a program that means more to me than anything else. So when we sat in that room and there was 50 or 60 of us that had a sentence, you know, we were ripping apart that gray book that was back there, that had a sentence that meant something to me because it helped me stay clean. Maybe that very day, you know, I wanted to see it in the basic text. So it was difficult, and I think through that experience and what I felt happening to me was that God worked. You know, God made the decisions happen. And because we absolutely, we were so diverse in our background that there was no way that anything but God could have brought us together, you know, so that we could cross the T's and dot the I's. And, you know, looking back at the battles that we would have and the way, you know, groups would segregate from everybody and make decisions in regard to the whole conference. Even that, you know, that sense of manipulation that was occurring, you know, you could feel that God worked, you know, that God had to work. And I guess in the same respect, you know, in our whole committee structure and everything else that happens with NA, it's a proven fact that God works. You know, that this is a gift from God. You know, it's when any controversy occurs, and I think, you know, I've been in the center of a lot of it personally, and it hurts. It hurts a lot. And there has to be a time when you step back and you say, you know, if a newcomer is coming to a room getting a message, then God works. Narcotics Anonymous works. You know, and there's no one person, there's no individual, no group, no body of individuals that can interrupt that string. But I mean, it works. I mean, look, this convention, the first time we gathered as a region, we had 283 people. You know, I'm sure there's more than that in this portion of the foyer outside the door. So, you know, it works. After Warren, the next conference we had was in Miami after World Convention 11. What a great experience that was, because we had input from a lot of people that went to the World Convention, and there was about 600 people that had gone to that World Convention. They were from all over the world, so it created a lot more input into the basic text, and it gave us more stimulus to create, and more arguments and more controversy, of course, and more battles. But it was fantastic. The next interesting thing that occurred was what we called the Big Little White Book, and that was they made 3,000 copies in Memphis. And I remember a bunch of us from this region went down there, pick up our fair share, and you know, keep a couple for ourselves. And we even the name Basic Text, I mean, what a battle that was. I mean, we didn't know what to call it. And I remember when that book had come out, the Big Little White Book, because Alcoholics Anonymous had the big book. Some people, do they refer to that as the blue book or no? But I don't know why but the thing is that we didn't want to call it the Big Little White Book because we didn't want to offend members of our fellowship that were not white. So, that was, we nixed that. I mean, some of the things that we came up actually were pretty good, I mean, I don't know if they have any real significance, but they, we had foresight in something, and I guess, you have to relate back to that God was speaking and sharing with us all. But that meeting in Memphis, excuse me, was, I believe, really probably the hump that we needed to cross, because that edition primarily is what we read today. A lot of it has been changed, revised, but yet, more than anything else, basically came out of that Big Little White Book. And I can remember I had one that, we used to give them the newcomers, man. It was the piece of the day, It was what we had. That was the only written word we had about Narcotics Anonymous at the time. And I remember giving mine to a newcomer, and for like 2 years I didn't see that thing. But, he had gotten high and, fell out of the fellowship. And I thought it was lost, and then he ended up coming back to us. Gave me the book, and then he went out and got high again. So, you never know, right? But anyway, and then I guess the most significant thing I can recall at the moment, after that, actually came the production of what we saw, that book right there, Basic Text. And man, that was some battle. I can recall sitting on the floor at a World Service Conference, and it was hard. It was really hard, because the egos were at an all-time high. Like I say, we personalize these issues, and I guess it's hard for us to detach and look objectively at things. Especially, we don't, I guess that kind of maturity comes with, a clean time, or at least it's supposed to. And, not many of us, were clean that long. And I guess because those who were clean longer, the only thing they had to rely on us that were nuts already, so the only influence they got was craziness, and it was, really wasn't a good standard for principles. That's my perception. But nevertheless, the Basic Text was born via that World Service Conference, and I can remember Jimmy Kin came over. We used to meet in Santa Monica at a union hall, and the bathroom by like the second day was clogged with toilet paper, so it was like the only bathroom that people had. We were all in different hotels on the beach of Santa Monica, and it was quite an unforgettable experience, to say the least. But it's those memories, and I guess the neatest part about history for me is those memories. It truly is blood, sweat, and tears that goes into making anything happen. And like anything else, you make things happen by work. And without a doubt, the ingredient to everybody's work and their ethics was based on the push they probably got spiritually, the drive that they had. And that's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing that we can actually come from nothing and have nothing but dope fiend instincts, that con and that manipulation, and transform it into something of help, some real productive piece of work that actually can make an impact on someone's life. I mean, that's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But a couple of particular points. I remember the very first conference that we held, looking in the book, which contained the information of all of the GSRs from 1971, and in Philadelphia areas, Philadelphia intergroup they called it at that time. And the peculiar part about it was, and I guess something that has left a greater imprint on me than anything else in regard to service, is that every name, every GSR, everyone that was represented or was representing a group at that time, 10 years later, was clean that day. And I mean, that said something to me. It was like participation means recovery. You know, selfless service means I can get better. You know, getting out of myself means that I'll grow. You know, that I'll stick around and I'll be here. And you know, any of us that I guess have a desire to stick around, you know, be a part of history. You know, I was looking through some of the things that we had back there that everybody has done such a phenomenal job in collecting, and I think, you know, all those people that participated in gathering all that information really deserve a hell of a hand. I think they do. I know just to be able to talk people out of that shit, you know, you got to, you know, it takes a lot. But, you know, God bless you and keep going, because, you know, it's nice to be able to reflect back on there. I was looking through some of that stuff, and you know what was really neat? What came to my mind was telling a newcomer, or walking back there to those archives, and showing a newcomer, not just an ordinary newcomer that wants to get clean. I'm talking about one of those kind of cats that wants to eat this shit up, man. You know what I mean? Somebody that goes to midnight meetings, you know? One of those kind of newcomers, right? Go back there and flip open one of the pages and say, and like one of those handwritten flyers for a fundraiser, you know, that we used to scratch out and then run off 150 copies. And say to the newcomer, say, look at this. You know, I knew the girl that wrote this up. Get involved in service. Be a part of history. And one day you'll go back to that book and find yours. You know. And, you know, that gives me goosebumps. You know, to think about that for a moment. You know, to play a role in something as beautiful and as wonderful as this is probably is without a doubt the greatest honor or privilege that any of us will ever get. You know, there's no greater satisfaction in life than being a part of a program that has no membership other than a desire. And you know, I know that I feel lucky, more than lucky, but that's pretty neat, you know, when you think about it. It was like the very first convention that we had, I kept the first ticket that said, and it says 00001 on it. And I also got 002 and 003, right? But the thing is that, you know, I held on to that, not realizing that, you know, would mean anything, you know, to anybody but me, because, you know, that means something to me. It's like it really means something to me, because I think back to, you know, the hard labor and the risk and the fear it was to walk into that first, you know, at 4th and Arch at that Holiday Inn. You know, that was so personalized for all those people that were involved, you know, because we didn't have a committee of bodies to do things. You know, if you wanted something done, you did it yourself in Narcotics Anonymous. You know, just about all of us had the autonomy to do whatever it was that we wanted to, because there was nobody else to do it. You know, plus in those days it was very easy to manipulate and sway group conscience because there wasn't very many people to combat you. You know, so if you ran up against any controversy, you know, it was you were able to get your way a lot of times.
You were the king of that.
I was at I came back from Miami, and I'm involved in like heavy politics, you know, and I think, you know, so this labor guy, you know, he was talking, and I related it to NA, but he said that diplomacy is being able to lead somebody to hell and have them enjoy going there, you know. And I think what we did, Mitch, in those days, was lead somebody to heaven, baby, and let them enjoy going there, you know. And I mean, because look, you know, I mean out of that, you know, came these kind of things, and that was all because people were selflessly giving themselves, regardless of how strong their ego was, or what their motives were, which is true, you know. You know, we got things done, and it was difficult because there wasn't a whole lot of people that were. We didn't have like 100 newcomers scratching at your back to look for something to do. You know, it was tough to get people to pick up ashtrays. You know, it was tough to get people to stick around. I mean, you know, when we held a convention committee meeting, it was in somebody's house because, you know, we didn't have the money to meet anywhere else, and you know, we all, you know, we chipped in ourselves for donuts. We even paid for our own registration, and the reason why we paid for our own registration was because the idea was that if you paid for how could you convince? See, we used to have a hard time getting people registered. You got to realize that, you know, Philadelphia Convention was not established like it is now. Now you print a flyer up. You could print 3 flyers up that say the Philadelphia Convention on it, and you'd still get 1,000 people there. I mean, if you look at the stuff from GPRCNA to GPRCNA to, can you remember? It's been a long week. Greater Philadelphia Regional Convention, Narcotics Anonymous. 2, on what we did was we sent informational kits to treatment centers, to press, to all these various outside organizations to solicit newcomers. And on one of them, I was looking back there because I recognized the handwriting. It said on there, and what we did was, here's how cheap we were. You know those little Post-it pads that many people see on their desk or their secretary's desk? The Post-it pads, the little yellow pads, we had bought one of those, 6 inches, right? And we cut it into little strips because we were that cheap. And we laid it at the corner, and it said, please copy and distribute. Because we couldn't even copy that many. I mean, we would send them out and ask, please copy and distribute. But I'll tell you what, you know, and I look at things like the poster on the easel that identifies the meeting outside this door is a very neatly, obviously professionally printed poster. Well, we didn't have the luxury of that kind of expense, and we had to physically labor over a poster that identified the meeting that was going to take place. Now, you may think, that ain't shit. Well, you take that in combination with all the other zillions of things that transpire in a convention, and we were tight, man. We had a well-orchestrated time. I mean, we knew what we were doing as a body, but you know, we weren't like a sloppy outfit. You know, we it was well organized, And laboring over something as simple as a poster, or having one person, write. We used to have one night for various chores, and 4 people would come over to the house, and we would write envelopes. And we used to get a treatment facility handbook, and we took the envelopes and wrote all the treatment facility addresses. One person would write the address. The next person, it was like an assembly line. The next person would take the papers and make 3 folds. It was, it's like we were real pain in the ass. 3 folds, not 2. You got to turn it over like that. I mean, the perfection. Because we loved what we strived to do everything as perfect as we could, I guess. Or some of us had that idea. And then, then the next person would stuff it. See, and the last person got stuck with the lousy job because we didn't have one of those, wet pads where you could dip the thing on, and they had gone like that, And by the end of the night, addressing about 150 envelopes, and then 150 to other places, it was, their tongue would stick to the roof of their mouth. But that labor of love, right, I believe is part of it, to have that kind of service to something. I'm sure if you were to ask anybody that did that would tell you, or I'll tell you what, if we were all able to jump back in time and sit in that room while we stuffed those envelopes, you would hear nothing but bitching and whining and carrying on for about the first half hour. But I'll tell you what, by the time that last envelope was stuffed and final stamp and label was on, we were in love with each other. I mean, as much as whatever hate that existed or whatever animosity we had because we had to do this, it was an accomplishment, and we all knew that we participated in it, you see. And it was that kind of theme, I believe, that the unity and the love that you produce out of that kind of service reflects itself in the convention that you host. And there's no doubt about it in my mind that a convention is a reflection of the committee that hosts it. If there's a lot of unity, if there's a lot of spirit, if there's a lot of enthusiasm, if there's a lot of love, if there's a lot of singular and purpose, that reflects itself in the convention. And likewise, if there's a lot of dissension, etc., that can emulate itself in a convention as well. Probably not as much. The negative always gets outweighed because when we all get here, it's like screw the people and let's love each other, And that's the way it should be. But they're reflecting back, maybe to give you let me try to give you some official, official meaning my opinionated version of some things. They're and this is one story that always gets messed up. Talk about exaggeration. But 1981, we wanted to do this 10-year conference. It was the first year that Philadelphia region became a region, and it was based on the idea that we needed to get as many people as we could out of the Philadelphia region in order to gain a group conscience. Group consciences became was like in vogue that year in NA. It was fashionable to be able to go out to the conference and say, this is a result of group conscience. And, us, Philadelphia, finally gaining some humility as a region, decided, let's conform, I guess. And so what we did was actually developed under the pretense of having a group conscience. And like I said, 283 people showed up. We had about 25 rooms, not enough to even get comped at the hotel. But we had a smorgasbord dinner. We were really high on the expenses, right? And I remember people trying to rip us off and snake through the door to get in there. Then it was a meeting that consisted of, we opened it up, a bunch of people came to the hotel on Friday night, and we had small meetings, about 20 people. Stayed overnight Friday night, and then Saturday officially is when all the events began, and we opened it up with we had 3 service conference, actually 4. One was on H&I, one was on P&I, one was on the hotline, and the other one was a group conscience meeting. And those we conducted between the hours of, say, 9 and 10 and 2. That time, we invited somebody down who, up until, I guess, a couple years ago, it was like a traditional thing to have him speak at every Philadelphia convention. And he was literally, I guess, our first speaker at a Philadelphia convention. And he had a real good, powerful message, and he got everybody all psyched up, and that was at 2 o'clock. And we went back into we broke back up into some of those conferences. There wasn't a whole lot of guys and gals that came to that during the day. I'd say maybe about 100 tops. But the interesting part about it was, an interesting part about this evening is that I walking through the corridor, I bumped into a guy who happened to call me that day, that Friday before it jumped off, and he said it was his first day out of a halfway house, right? He had just gotten out of jail, or I can't recall the whole scenario, but he called and he said, "Look, man, I ain't got no place to crash. I heard about this thing you're having in Philly. You know, am I allowed to come?" And I said, "What? You know, it was like we had a newcomer, man. You know what I mean? And when we had newcomers in those days, we grabbed you. You know, it was like if you were a newcomer, you got sucked up, and we loved you to death, and we wouldn't let you go. We were very possessive of newcomers. There was, not enough of us. Strength in numbers. So it was important that anybody that walked into the room knew we gave them everything we could. So I was like, ecstatic. What? Welcome. What? Being invited. Give you a room. I'll take it out of my pocket. You have to be there. You must come to the. Do you want to stay clean, Eddie? Got to be there, right? And so I happened to bump into him tonight, and it brought back that thing. But after that, we had like an open, relaxed time, and we did nothing more than socialize till dinner. And I can remember that was the first major line that probably formed in Philadelphia in regard to a convention. Everybody waiting for a banquet. Just like as tomorrow night, I'm sure you'll all see, everybody will be standing in the foyer waiting for the doors to open, trying to grab a seat in the front, and nothing's changed. There are some things never change, and we had to wait because we were trying to put all the pieces together, and of course everybody came early. It's probably the only thing they came early to, and we ran out of room by about 4 chairs, and so that's where we came up with 283, and so we had 3 chairs, and we had to have some people squeeze in a little bit. But we had seafood Norberg. I remember that because it was disgusting. I didn't eat a thing that night. That was about the only thing I remember. And the reason why I remember it was because when getting the contract at the hotel, because I had to try to act cool negotiating this thing, I remember coming home and asking somebody, "What the fuck is seafood Nuremberg?" I was a real classy dude in those days. I never had it before, right? So we had that, and I guess rice pilot, that always goes with it, right? Right? No? Not a seafood normally? But anyway, huh? That's what I said, rice pilaf. You see how history, you say one thing and nobody can ever repeat it back to you the way it originally came out? Oh, shit. But that was something, and it was a little bit unusual in the sense that we taped that convention, and I had one of those ghetto blasters, right? And I asked the DJ if he would set it on his table, because that was set up in the back of the room, and push record when I shook him a sign, you know. That was the first tape, and there's only one tape in existence. Unfortunately, it happens to be really wrapped up. But I guess I wonder if they probably have the technology to put that tape back together. It would be interesting. But unfortunately, we did tape a good percentage of it, but we had a lead into the introduction to the banquet speaker. And the lead into it was interesting in the sense that we introduced various members of the region. And that within itself was a debate. Because you see, if you didn't walk the walk, you wasn't going to be up on that head table, man. You know what I mean? If you were like a figurehead in Narcotics Anonymous, hey, we didn't have any place for you to come up on the mic. Things were a little bit different. What I mean by, you calling the shots. It was like, if you had to, I guess, kind of be true. At least that's the way I saw it in order to be a part of it. And in that sense, we felt we were, more or less we were representing, the various areas that we had, and the regional chairman sat there, and the RSR alternate. But we designated to them different responsibilities. We had an area introduction. Another interesting thing that occurred was there was an individual who had come around to Narcotics Anonymous, and we all used to hear him. Everybody knew what everybody else used to share about. So he had come around NA, and he was bitching about he was getting ready for sentencing, and I guess like for the first maybe 3 or 4 months that he was clean, he had this upcoming sentencing. So he'd come to a meeting and he would talk about the fear he had in relationship to in going to prison. And so we all could identify that. Well, what happened was he ended up going to prison, and he served some state time. And the day that conference began was the day he got released from jail. And we all knew the dude, because you knew just about anybody, so we all knew him. And I can remember setting it up and saying, make sure that we have him do a reading at that banquet meeting. And I'll tell you what, when I had the honor of chairing that one, and it was so neat to, I don't know if even neat's the right word. It's one of those things that you never forget, unforgettable moment. And, makes you keep coming back. But introducing him and portraying that scenario to everyone that was there, and having him coming up, and the feeling, everybody in that room, was like, welcome back. He stayed clean. See, that was the thing. That's why we loved the experience, was because he stayed clean. And for us, that meant, because he was probably the first person in the region that I'm aware of that came to Narcotics Anonymous, gotten sentenced, went to jail, came out clean. And you know what that said to all of us? See? It can be done. That it was like another obstacle that we were all probably, it was like another story we can tell a newcomer, is what it was. It was like, if the newcomer that came into the rooms was going to be sentenced, we could say to them, with all the sincerity and honesty, that yes, if you go to jail, you can stay clean. And that's what it meant, I guess, to all of us in that room, because we had that, that hope. It was, and as a matter of fact, he was in this room a little while ago. So, and that's something, clean. So, to me, history is, an example of all the miracles. Like the theme, the miracle continues, and from wherever it starts in your life, if you keep coming around, it continues, right? But after that, I had a real bad experience, personal experience. I remember at that convention, I had a real, nasty thing happened to me with, something from my past that evening, and it was a real shocker, to have to deal with the enthusiasm and the unbelieving feeling, and I got to say so myself, I was really humble that evening. I really was, and it was a really, it was unbelievable. It was like such a great reward to serve for me that night. And, this, an incident happened that, kind of shot me into reality a little bit, and it was weird, but I got through it. But we had a dance. The meeting went on so long that there was a bunch of people that had come over from a halfway house, and all they wanted to do was dance. And I see somebody waving like this in the back, and then they came up and they said, "Should we refund the money because these people want to go home?" And, I said, "I don't give a shit. We made our money. We're solvent. If you want to refund the money, let them go. Because the meeting went on for so long, and people were waiting to dance, and I think we had to shut down at like 1 o'clock, and it was already almost 11. So people felt that they were getting rooked, because they couldn't. They felt they paid for the dance, and that's what they wanted to do, dance. But after that, we danced, and then the next morning was pretty interesting. We had a spiritual meeting, which was strange because we had 3 speakers, and it was, kind of half-assed. We all went in, kind of ate breakfast. We didn't have any coffee set up because we couldn't afford breaks, In those days, I guess $14 a gallon was, we didn't have the capital to do that, to provide people with that expense. And so we had to, when I'm thinking about capital, I'm thinking about a story. But we didn't have the capital to have coffee at the hotel, so we had to get people to go into the restaurant and buy coffee. People bought the coffee and would bring it back, and so we had all these. It was 60 cents a cup, and everybody bitched. Why don't we have coffee? So, we didn't have money at the first one. They spent $7,000 for coffee this year. But we were fiscally responsible, you know what I mean? It was the pressure was so heavy on us because we felt that if we screwed this up, then NA would not be able to have a convention in Philadelphia. It was the first time that we ever did anything at this scale, that we attempted, to expose ourselves to, hotels, etc. And we had a high degree of responsibility to the reputation of Narcotics Anonymous. And we thought if we screw this up, we could screw it up forever. And then there wouldn't be, that celebration of recovery, what a convention's all about. So the pressure was really intense, and we just could not afford doing that. And as a matter of fact, I asked somebody who was in the middle of going through a divorce, and all his money was withheld from him to sign the contract, because I knew if we blew it, then they wouldn't be able to nail him for the money. I mean, none of us. I mean, you should have seen throwing the papers on the table. You want to talk about some chicken shit motherfuckers? Nobody wanted to write their name on the bottom of that contract. It's like they scattered like flies out of the room. A lot of fear, right? But I can remember talking to this dude. We're sitting in my car, and I said, "Look, one of us has got to write it. One of us has got to sign it." And we decided since they couldn't, all his money was tied up, they couldn't get it from him, that we let him do it. So, but we were fiscally responsible. Pressure was intense. The second one was even worse because, we had much more expenses, in the sense that we were going into a very eloquent hotel. It wasn't 6 months old at the time. And not only that, but we had no money for some of the activities to support. They wanted advances. We had no reputation. We really had no leg to stand on. As a matter of fact, negotiating a contract, we had to make reference to hotels from world conventions, and because they happened to be the most solvent, and not all of them were up to that time. There was one that had actually fallen in the red, and it did tarnish the reputation of NA for quite a while. But you give them the names of places that you had been. We bullshitted them, really, because we had nothing established. We had no credit anywhere. I mean, there was no credit for Narcotics Anonymous. I mean, all we could do was say that we had a banquet at Holiday Inn at 4th and Arch, and we spent, I guess it was about $1,000. That was our credit line, and we did pay our bill on time, but there really was no basis for our credit there. And I remember it was a real con job. It was a real con job, and it was, I guess, a con job plus God, right, that got us in there, because we never would have made it if it wasn't for, I'm sure, that last factor. But we did get there, and there was three of us. We each donated $100. That was our capital expenditure. The region, I guess, had about $63.93 in it at the time. And that's how we got it off. We each chipped in a yard, $100 bill. And then, I guess as the story goes, Dutch and I went down to Atlantic City and played some roulette. We were walking by it, and we closed our eyes and said, "You pick a number, and you pick a color." And we put it all on the wheel. We also tried to, I'll leave that to your imagination. But we also tried to, then, I'll tell you what, see, then we got real creative. And not only, did we want everybody from Philly to come, because I remember this experience. Not only did we want, the Fellowship of NA to be able, we wanted to be able to subsidize, make it affordable. That was the solution. See, if you made it affordable, then everybody from Narcotics Anonymous can come. And we were like anxious for big numbers, man. We wanted to have a banquet with 500 people there. I mean, that was we didn't get that, but that was what we were looking for. We had a room, and we had blocked about 400 seats, and we thought, if we could get that, man, that's a healthy room. That's a lot of people, right? And so the lottery was around at the time. So I thought, if God's got to be working with us, so let me pick 3 numbers, lay $1 down, right? And then that's $500. Then we can go to the treatment centers. The registration was $10 at the time, and that's 50 treatment center people that you can bring in for nothing, right? So keeping in mind that scenario, thought, well, shit. If God's going to give me $500 for these 50 people, then He might as well throw me about $7,000, right? So I went in, played the number, and then like $1 for NA. Then I thought, well, make it $2 for NA, and here's $5 for me on the same number, right? So, my conscience got the best of me, and I guess so did God, because the number was so far off from what came up that evening that it didn't even matter. But anyway, I guess the whole thing is that we wanted to get new people to that meeting, because we felt that a celebration of recovery is, everybody's got to feel the effects of this. Everybody's going to be around that, and I guess to me personally, there was no weekend that ever had a greater, that has better valuable memories for me than that one, because there was so much turmoil going on in the region at the time that the theme was the time to come together, and the theme was generate. In those days, we used to generate our themes from like something that happened, or somebody be sitting around a room and go, a celebration of service through recovery, or a time to come together, yeah, right. And it was like, but we all had to like feel it, you know what I mean? It was like, you just didn't pop a theme out because it was catchy or something. It was like it had to like, engulf you, and like everybody had to go, yeah, and so I guess it was whoever had the best presentation, like we got that, we used that theme. But that Hershey Hotel convention, time to come together, certainly was appropriate, because I guess at no prior time, I imagine, NA had gone through such dissension, in the sense that we really needed unity in order to grow, because we had been stagnant in Philadelphia for so many years. I mean, Philadelphia was just like, the numbers were never coming in. I guess like Narcotics Anonymous was everywhere else in the world. We just weren't growing. But suddenly we saw that there was room for growth, that we were prepared to carry the message to all those people who were coming in. The basic text was happening, and we were ready for you. We were ready for the swarms of people that needed to hear this message. So we needed unity, I believe, to be able to give that message in the right light, with the honesty and sincerity that it takes for people to understand. And in conjunction with that, some really neat developments began. And I guess if many of you have gone to conventions throughout this world, I've seen it in other conventions. An idea was inspired out of the Philadelphia Convention was the you can't keep what you have unless you give it away. And that was the book and the mug thing. And I know that's, that symbolic gesture has changed. It's a book and flowers, or it's, this and that. But in other places, but it was inspired through the Philly Convention. And it was really neat, matter of fact, when we, being the first time doing anything, you make mistakes. But I can remember the dude that gave the pitch on that, screwed it up entirely, he said, okay, the guy with the most clean time, you grab the book. And then, it was the guy, the newest person at the table, you grab the mug. And somebody say, no, you got it backwards. Oh, okay. Now, the guy with the least time, you grab the book. And everybody was like messed up. So all we could do is at the end of it, just say, look, the guy with the most time has the mug, and the guy with the least time has the book. And that's the way, we couldn't get that to work properly. But it eventually happened, and that was a really neat experience. And I think the unity generated from that, I know personally, like I say, was an unforgettable and valuable time in my own recovery. And the neatest thing about participation or being a part of some kind of function or some kind of event or being like one of the worker bees is to be somewhere else and hear somebody say, I got clean at such and such, and to know that you were an instrument in making that activity occur, it's unbelievable feeling to know that you participated in maybe helping save somebody's life. I guess the Thursday night before that convention took place, we had a lot of internal battles to a degree. We kind of we labored a lot. We stuffed a lot of envelopes. We had things donated. There was fundraisers in Baltimore and in New York and New Jersey, to help us pull this thing off. We traveled to all those places, man. I can remember one night about 15 carloads of people, met on whatever the first truck stop is on the New Jersey Turnpike, to go up to a fundraiser in New York they were having for us. We passed out a lot of raffles. We had a lot of dances. We had no capital and no credit. So we bought things. We were working from hand to mouth, so to speak. What we took in today, we used tomorrow to purchase more T-shirts so that we could have more money to do whatever it was we had to do next. And as a result of that, I believe that hard labor and love and the painstaking events to get to that point, we had what we called the Last Supper. And we went to a restaurant in South Philadelphia, and everybody, there was 23 of us, everybody that was a worker bee was involved in that convention. The time to come together was at that dinner. And I can remember the arts and graphics chairperson, not committee, because we did not have committees. We had a person to do a job. And he unveiled the banner for the first time. And I'll tell you what, man, it was unbelievable because we all felt, it was truly coming to fruition. Our labor of love was going to happen. And we didn't know what the fuck was going to happen. But we knew, that was like the first physical evidence that, April 14th. No, it was April 13th, because nobody mentioned that it was that it was Friday the 13th. You know, nobody would even say that. But you know, because we believed in God. You know, a couple of us would say, you know, replace your fear with faith. Remember that, you know, on that day. You know, but we still had a lot of superstition, and I guess superstition is lack of faith, right? So, you know, we were a little bit skeptical, but, you know, so we didn't mention it. But on that Thursday evening, the 12th of April, we got together, and the banquet speaker who flew in from LAX and the spiritual speaker who flew in from San Francisco were in that afternoon, came to that dinner with us. So it was, I guess it was that included in that 23, but unveiling that banner and seeing that was, like I said, the first physical evidence of that this thing was actually going to take place was overwhelming, to say the least. And never forget it. Another thing was, as I can remember, that was we had written to Vice President of Philadelphia Electric Company, and I think I remember recalling his name, looking at one of the letters, more recent letters, Clifford Brenner, and asked him to put Welcome NA on the crown lights at the electric company. And I can remember at the banquet, it's a very misty evening, you know, so we couldn't see him from the location of the hotel. You could not see the crown lights because the Bellevue Stratford was in its way from any window. And remember Pam was chairing the meeting, and she hollered, somebody came over to us and said, "The lights are on, the lights are on, the lights are on." You know, and I can remember the thrill in her voice when she stepped up to the podium and said, you know, "Tell me NA doesn't work. They got lights on at the Philadelphia Electric Company welcoming us to the city of brotherly love," you know, something like that. And we flipped, man. We just, you know, we were ecstatic, you know. It was like, we have come of age, man. You know, we were there, you know, a bunch of dope fiends in this hotel. And you know, we actually had the room, you know, pay for the money to pay for the room, and you know, the line that we used was, you know, the reason why we had everybody register was because we felt you could not solicit, you couldn't turn, you know, to Bill and say, "Bill, you know, get a registration for the convention," unless you had bought one yourself, right? So, you know, everybody in the convention committee had to put up their $10 to get a registration. So they could be able to go and solicit more, because we felt you couldn't do it with heart unless you had paid for one yourself, right? And, you know, we were trying to lead by example. And but I forgot what I was going to say. But the crown lights were up. We went out later that evening. I remember we had talked the security guard. I mean, you want to talk about persistence, man. You know, I mean, it was like, you know, we would do anything, you know, to get it, to make things happen. And talked the security guard into letting us go up to the top of, I think it was the Sheraton at the time, over at University City, because that was the best angle. And there was a dude from Florida that was running around the meeting that weekend with a, you know, real expensive-looking camera. And so we grabbed him with a zoom lens and went up there, and he didn't have a tripod, and it was a real rainy evening. I remember they wouldn't let him out on the roof because it was so windy. They were afraid he would blow off. So he stood in the doorway, and I held him because he had it on time lapse, a real slow exposure, and I had to like throw all my weight to lean on him to keep him still, act like a tripod, so that he could take this photograph that said, "Welcome NA." And it was funny, but talking about coming of age, I remember one of the photographs, I still got them, say, the angle, the L didn't come out, and it just says, "We come NA." Like, here we come NA. And it was true. Here we come NA. We were not the most well-behaved people at that convention. I really felt embarrassed. I was really concerned that we had forever damaged the reputation of Narcotics Anonymous. We had about 800 participants from all over the place. We got our 400 for dinner, and there was 35 people that wanted to come to the banquet so bad that we set 2 tables outside the doors, and they ate there. But there was, a couple really pretty nasty things happen when you get a bunch of dope fiends clean. I guess they don't always, do the right thing. One of the greatest experiences for me, or positive experiences, and it turned out to be a really negative experience for the hotel, or they saw it that way, was that what happened is about 4 days after the convention, they received a Federal Express package, okay, and in it, bless you, contained a shower curtain, towels, the telephone, sheets, all right, and it was all in a big package, right? I mean, the shower curtain, okay, all this stuff, I guess a lamp, knives and forks, right? But it was just a whole box of items. I remember those specifically. And on it, there was a letter addressed to the hotel, said, "I apologize for ripping this shit off, but my sponsor told me if I didn't do something about it that I'd get high. So I had to send it back to you." And I remember being down there with security after they had received these items, because I went back to the hotel to kind of restore some sanity in their lives. Like, I guess I was the right person to do that, right? But nevertheless, I put on that sane face, probably a tie too. And I went back in the hotel, and they were saying, the security guard is there. "We're tracing from where that package come. We got to call in the Federal Express, and we're going to get the guy that took that stuff." And I'm going, man, but don't you see? How clear can you draw the picture? Then, here's a guy that's in the process of recovery. Can't you see it? A couple of them bought it. We gave him a couple cuffs. Those are the ones that liked us, man. We gave them, a time to come together. They were the worst cups we'd ever bought, but we didn't have any money for anything. They were real, they held about 2.5 ounces. There's one back there, and it's funny, I guess, we won't purchase a coffee cup less than 11 ounces. I mean, that's how we're into coffee. But that was that, and it's like a minute before 12, and I'll tell you, I know that this, me sharing this stuff probably wasn't exactly what I should have done, because I don't know if it gave any of you anything more than, as I had mentioned earlier, my personal perception on what some things, experiences in Narcotics Anonymous, and but I guess it was what I needed to do for me, and if you didn't get what you want, I apologize for that, but I believe I got what I wanted and or needed. And I want to thank you all very much for allowing me to serve and to share those experiences with you, and thanks. God bless.